Trigger warning, this story contains graphic content and violence that may be disturbing to some readers. The night was dark and eerie, the moon hidden behind thick clouds. A chill ran down the spine of anyone walking down the deserted streets of Los Angeles that January night in 1947. It was a night that would go down in history, a night that would forever be remembered as the night of the Black Dahlia Murder. The sun had set hours ago, and Elizabeth Short was nowhere to be found. Her friends and family were growing worried. She was known to be outgoing and adventurous, but she had never gone missing before. The clock ticked away, and the anxiety grew until it was unbearable. Then the news came. Elizabeth's body had been found. The police arrived at the vacant lot where the body of Elizabeth Short lay. Her body was severed in half, and her mouth was sliced from ear to ear, giving her an eerie, grotesque smile. Blood was everywhere, staining the ground and painting the nearby walls. The scene was like something out of a horror movie. The investigation began, but the police hit a dead end after every lead they pursued. Elizabeth's murder was so heinous that it sent shivers down the spine of every person involved in the case. Who could have committed such a horrific crime? The police had no answers. Rumors started to spread about Elizabeth Short's lifestyle. People began to whisper about her being a prostitute, about her having affairs with men in power, about her being involved with the mob. The rumors grew, taking on a life of their own until they became accepted as the truth. The police were left with more questions than answers. They had no idea who had committed the murder, but they were certain that it was someone with a sick, twisted mind, someone who enjoyed causing pain and suffering, someone who had no regard for human life. The investigation dragged on for months, but no suspects were ever found. The case eventually went cold, and Elizabeth Short's murder remained one of the most infamous unsolved mysteries in American history. Years passed, and the legend of the Black Dahlia Murder grew. People whispered about it in hushed tones, sharing stories about the gruesome details of the crime. Some even claimed to have seen Elizabeth's ghost wandering the streets of Los Angeles, searching for justice. And then, one day, a breakthrough. A man named George Hodel was identified as a possible suspect in the murder of Elizabeth Short. Hodel was a wealthy doctor with connections to Hollywood's elite. He had been investigated in the past for other crimes, but he had never been charged. The police had found evidence that tied Hodel to the crime scene. They had discovered a note in his possessions that read sincerely, Black Dahlia Avenger. The note was written in code, but it was clear that Hodel was involved in some way. The case was reopened, and Hodel was put on trial for the murder of Elizabeth Short. The evidence against him was circumstantial, but it was strong enough to convince the jury. Hodel was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. But the case was far from over. Even after Hodel's conviction, people continued to speculate about the true identity of the killer. Some believed that Hodel was just a pawn, and that the real culprit was still out there, walking among them. The mystery of the Black Dahlia murder remains unsolved to this day. The horror of Elizabeth Short's death has lingered for decades, haunting the city of Los Angeles and sending chills down the spine of anyone who hears her story. And while the case may never be solved, the memory of Elizabeth Short will never be forgotten. The decades-long investigation had uncovered many potential suspects, but none had been definitively proven to be the killer. Over the years, people had come forward with information, tips, and theories, but none had led to a break in the case. As time passed, the legend of the Black Dahlia murder only grew. It became a source of fascination and fear for people all over the world. The horrific details of the murder, the gruesome way in which Elizabeth Short's body had been mutilated, and the fact that the killer had never been caught, all contributed to the legend. But there were some who believed that the killer was still alive, and that he would strike again. They believed that the Black Dahlia was not an isolated incident, but rather the beginning of a killing spree that would continue until the killer was caught. The city of Los Angeles had never fully recovered from the shock of the Black Dahlia murder. It had left a lasting scar on the city and had become a part of its history, a part of its folklore. People still whispered about it, still speculated about who the killer could be, and still feared that he was out there, waiting to strike again. In the end, the case of the Black Dahlia murder remains one of the most gruesome, horrific, and unsolved murders in American history. It is a story that continues to fascinate, to intrigue, and to terrify people to this day. The horror of Elizabeth Short's death and the mystery of her killer will likely never be fully understood or explained. As the sun sets on another day in Los Angeles, the city remains haunted by the memory of the Black Dahlia. The legend lives on, passed down from generation to generation, reminding us of the dark, terrifying side of humanity. The Black Dahlia murder may never be solved, but it will always be remembered as a chilling reminder of the horrors that can lurk beneath the surface of everyday life. Thanks for tuning into Sinister Crime Lab. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more intriguing true crime cases, don't forget to hit that like button, share with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more spine-chilling content.